Mihile is this NPC, right? Oh, the class! Okay. Mihile is one of the very few remaining party-supportive classes in MapleStory, boasting a bunch of defense for all his allies, as well as insane iframe potential for themselves. The biggest appeal to playing them by far is their survivability throughout everything they do, but also because they're really fun nowadays too. Pretty simple class overall. Mostly everything they do is condensed down into like 3 categories, and they don't have many buttons hogging up their entire keyboard. You're here to learn how to do such a thing, so yeah, let's start by explaining all their skills, as always. Here in the Beginner Skills tab, mostly the same as all the other Cygnus Knights, and the game just whips this at you. Empress's Prayer functions like Hero's Echo, except only to yourself, and also doesn't stack with Hero's Echo-like effects. It gives 4% extra attack and magic attack, lasts 2 whole hours, and has a 1-day cooldown. I'm going to assume it's because of this funny little line right here. You're able to fight any monsters above your own level without a level difference damage penalty while it's up, and this buff doesn't go away when you lose all your health. This isn't anything too significant nowadays for the most part, but it can help squeeze out a bit more damage in later Arcane River areas, or something like when bosses become much higher level than you. The only other thing in your Beginner Skills tab is Empress's Shout, which increases your max health and mana a little bit, and your Link skill, which you unlock at level 70. It just gives status resistance, right? Oh, it's an entirely different link from Mihile! So as a shared link, it just gives some status resistance. Big whoop, that's why nobody really uses it in favor of better damage increasing link skills. Just for Mihile though, Night's Watch gives you a shield for a little bit of time that blocks a few enemy attacks, as well as gives you some increased damage and reducing your damage taken from attacks that deal % health. The more you level up to Link level 3 at level 210, the higher the Link skills stats go up too. At max level, it lasts for 45 seconds, blocks 9 enemy hits, increases damage by 25%, and reduces % attacks damage by 30%. 3-minute cooldown at all levels though. Does First Job have any shields? Oh yeah, it does. Royal Guard is your most important skill on Mihile. Everything you'll ever do is entirely dependent on this skill. Click it, and you whip out a shield in front of you for a set period of time. While it's out, you're technically invincible, ready to counter any damage you receive. If you're successful, you'll see the word guard appear, nearby enemies take damage, and most important above all, you gain a 4-second iframe. You also gain a stack each time you successfully counter, and this stack not only gives you extra attack power, it also increases the damage of the resulting counter attack, and increasingly does more hits, hits more enemies, and gives more and more attack power per extra stack. Though the counter attack window decreases a little bit with every successful Royal Guard stack. More on that later. The stacking buff lasts for 20 seconds, and when it expires, it only goes down 1 stack at a time. 6-second cooldown. If you want to main Mihile, familiarize yourself with this skill. Alright, we gotta talk about the other Mihile skills too. Okay, fine. You get a couple typical useful passives, including this one that provides more damage and crit rate to blinded enemies, a standard flash jump that can also be bound to a button, and Shining Pierce, which is your basic mobbing skill that also blinds enemies, to make use of Righteous Indignation. Second Job gives a few more basic passives that just increase your stats, mastery, and attack speed. Final Attack gives a chance to deal an extra attack with your direct attack skills, and Encourage is a party buff that gives you and your whole party some extra attack power, and passively gives Mihile some extra Royal Guard counter attack damage. Now for the attacks. Radiant Driver is just a rush-like skill that shoves enemies back. Vertical Radiant Driver is your up jump skill that doesn't shove enemies back. And 4-Point Assault is your basic mobbing skill that also blinds. Third Job's a little more interesting than second in my opinion, if you choose to ignore Soul Release, which is just another basic mobbing skill that blinds. You want upgrades to your Royal Guard. I know you do. How about 2? Advanced Royal Guard ups your total Royal Guard stacks from 3 to 5, as well as gives some defensive passives, and Offensive Defense puts a debuff on enemies that makes them weaker to Radiant Soul skills. So all your basic mobbing attacks you got at every job rank so far. Successfully shield against an enemy, then attack with a Radiant Soul skill, and the enemies take a big extra hit. The debuff lasts for 20 seconds, and there's a 12-second cooldown in between uses on enemies. Here's some more cool little passives for passive health and mana recovery, various damage increasing stats, and an upgrade to Righteous Indignation. Oh, here's a toggle too. Soul Link gives extra damage per party member in the same map as you, and if you're not in a party, the game counts you in one by yourself, so it'll always give at least 5% minimum extra damage. If you do have party members though, when you successfully counter with Royal Guard, your party gains a shield for a few seconds, increasing per level of the skill. They also periodically get bonus attack and magic attack equal to half the attack bonus from Royal Guard. If you also have advanced Royal Guard, your party also gains bonus defense and status resistance. Though one small warning, it drains 15 mana every second it's toggled on. Don't worry about that too much. Overall, pretty in-depth and useful party buff. Lastly, at third, Magic Crash removes certain enemy buffs and prevents enemies from recasting those buffs on themselves. Specifically, attack bonuses, defense bonuses, and Obsidian Skin? I didn't know what Obsidian Skin was, so I asked the Mihile Discord, and they believe it might be the buff Sinister Steel Masks in Twilight Perion cast occasionally. There's probably other enemies with it, but that's my immediate example from them. I haven't found an answer beyond this besides it being the name of a Demon Slayer skill, so yeah, I'll accept that. Overall, Magic Crash isn't insanely useful, but it can remove and prevent things like Weapon Cancel and Damage Reflect. 1 minute cooldown. Alright, fourth job, show me the goods. Now that's what I'm talking about. A whole bunch of passives for IED, Mastery, Attack, Crit Rate, and Crit Damage, Stronger Final Attack, Knockback Resistance, and 2 more upgrades for Royal Guard. Advanced Defensive Defense upgrades Offensive Defense, duh, by making the shockwave damage higher, lowering the cooldown to 10 seconds, and upping your Royal Guard counterattack damage a ton more at all stacks. Soul Asylum permanently gives you extra max health and reduces damage you'll ever take ever again by an extra 10%, as well as reduces damage taken from percent health attacks for 15 seconds per successful Royal Guard. You think Mihile is the odd class out that doesn't have Maple Warrior and Hero's Will? Nah, they get that too, of course they do. They also get a summon at fourth job. Install Shield places a giant shield in place for a minute that simply hurts nearby enemies that go near it periodically, and does extra damage to normal enemies, 30-second cooldown. Roiling Soul is Mihile's second toggle that's kinda like Hero's Enrage. It gives a bit of extra final damage and crit damage, ups your Radiant Soul skill blind chance to 100%, but at the cost of how many enemies you can hit with all your skills, except some summons. The enemy's hit reduces down to a third, but won't fall below 2 for all skills that mob enemies. Your final skill at fourth is another basic mobbing skill, except this is your main one you'll be using from here on out, Radiant Cross. It functions the same as all your other basic mobbing skills, doubles as your main bossing skill, and also has a blind chance slapped onto it. When Roiling Soul is toggled on, it transforms into Radiant Cross Assault, which reduces the damage dealt per line, but in return hits way more lines. It also says it hits 12 enemies, but with the mob's hit reduction effect of Roiling Soul, that's only 4 enemies hit. Mihile's hyper skills are overall pretty cool, and they start you off with a skill you can use frequently. Charging Light counts as a Radiant Soul skill, has a chance to blind, and does a huge pierce in front of you, damaging enemies and placing a debuff on them that increases their damage taken by 10%, 15-second cooldown. Queen of Tomorrow sounds really cool, but it's just the equivalent to Epic Adventure. 10% damage for you and all other Cygnus Knights in your party, 1 minute uptime, 2 minute cooldown. Your third hyper skill, Soul Majesty, gives you a slight damage buff and buffs up your Soul Asylum whenever you counterattack an enemy successfully, giving you a little more reduced damage taken. If Install Shield is out, it also buffs that too, giving it the ability to cast the Offensive Defense buff on enemies, as well as reducing the cooldown of Offensive Defense's Light Shockwave attack to 2 seconds. Not only that, it also gives a second extra attack called Light Wave in addition to Light Shockwave. 25-second duration, 3-minute cooldown. Hyper passives are a little less exciting, but still nice to have. Starting with Royal Guard. You want all of them, right? No, actually. The only one you'd want to consider is Guard Break, and that's apparently only if you plan to use Mihile as a boss mule. Enhance just reduces percent health attacks by an extra 5% in addition to Soul Asylum, and Persist extends that damage reduction effect by an extra 5 seconds. They're okay-ish defensive passives, but ultimately there's much better options. Like everything for Radiant Cross. No matter if you plan on maining Mihile or using them as a boss mule, you want every single one of these. Reinforce for extra damage, Guard Break for an extra IED, which I guess is the only optional one here, and Extra Strike for an extra line of damage. All of these apply to both normal Radiant Cross and Radiant Cross Assault. Lastly, install shield. Reinforce is good for extra damage because you'll practically have it out at all times. And spread is pretty nice for hitting 2 extra enemies while grinding. Persist is useless because the duration of install shield already lasts twice the length of time as its cooldown, and that's it for hyper passives. 5th job Mihile is mostly party play stuff, providing a ton of supportive defensive stuff for your whole party. Not entirely though. Light of Courage is a shield that firstly, boosts your damage a little bit. That part of the skill lasts for 25 seconds. More importantly, it gives you and your whole party a big ol' shield on their health bar. That's a combined accumulation of the entire party's max health. Though, the total of that shield reduces by 7% every second. The shield has a 12-second duration at all levels, and the skill itself has a 90-second overall cooldown. Sword of Light simply does damage all around you. The damage dealt increases the more stacks of Royal Guard you have. This skill has a 100% chance to blind, and after being used, it extends Royal Guard's current stack by 6 seconds. Though it still hits the cap of 20 seconds per stack, so it won't go higher than that. 12-second cooldown. Shield of Light ironically doesn't get boosted by Royal Guard whatsoever. No, instead it just places a big old bubble shield on top of you that moves with you, and applies to both you and your party members, reducing the damage of anyone inside your shield. It reduces damage from both normal and percent health attacks, as well as blocks debilitating status conditions. The shield has 3 whole layers, with each layer blocking a certain number of attacks and debuffs depending on the level of the skill. At max level, the layers block against 10, 10, and 15 attacks respectively, from outmost to innermost. The only time after max level that this raises is at 6th job. The damage reduction part lasts for 25 seconds, and the shield itself lasts for 41 seconds at level 1, going up to 99 seconds at max level, 3-minute cooldown. Lastly, for skills unique to Mihile at 5th, Radiant Soul makes your sword and shield imbued with light, and juices up your stats for 35 seconds at all levels. Your attack, crit rate, IED, all that. It also increases the counterattack window for Royal Guard to be half a second at all stacks. In addition to all that, it also periodically deals damage to nearby enemies, and transforms your Radiant Cross into Radiant Soul Slash, which has a bigger hitbox and does a bit more damage. Lastly, clicking the skill at any point during its duration gives you a new attack called Light Force Ray, they might have misspelt Ray there, I don't know, which can only be used once per Radiant Soul. It just does a bunch of damage alongside a ton of light attacks. Right-clicking the skill disables Radiant Soul Slash, replacing Radiant Cross, and instead only comes out when you use your basic attack key. There's not really a reason to ever do this, I don't think. 3-minute cooldown. Now on to shared skills. Empress Ignis's Blessing builds up 1 charge every 4 minutes up to 2 charges, and simply gives you extra damage. Throughout the duration, it periodically restores a percentage of health and increases your damage, but caps out at 90% extra damage at all levels. It also has a duration of 45 seconds at all levels. Phalanx Charge is simply a summon that brings out the Royal Squad to charge forward and simply attack enemies in their path, slowing down every time they come in contact with an enemy. They stay out for a set distance, duration, and/or attacks dealt, and while they're out and about, clicking the skill again changes their direction. 30-second cooldown. Up next, shared warrior skills, starting with the most important of the two. Weapon Aura builds up 1 charge every 3 minutes up to 2 charges, and when activated, sends a wave of power shooting forth from you with most of your attacks, piercing all enemies it passes through, up to 10 total enemies every 5 seconds. It also gives some final damage in IED while active too. Lastly, to end off all of Mihile's 5th job skills, Impenetrable Skin gives you super stance, passively gives you some strength and max health, and increases your damage whenever you get hit. It starts off at 3 stacks at level 1, and goes up to 6 total stacks at max level. It also has a 15-second duration at level 1, going up to 18 seconds at max level, but has a 2-minute cooldown at all levels. Mihile isn't all that technical or complicated, but they still have some unique systems going on that can be further explained, so let's make them easy. Starting first and foremost with your most important skill, Royal Guard. It's not only an iframe / counter skill, but you can also cancel animations with it, dishing out potentially more skills quicker if used properly. It doesn't let you cast the next skill sooner, but according to the Mihile Discord's guide, it lets you fit Royal Guard into a time window that you would have spent waiting for your first skill's animation to finish. Simplifying that long-winded explanation, cast any skill of your choice, most commonly shorter cooldown skills like Sword of Light or Charging Light, and then pop Royal Guard immediately after. The result is the first attack's animation playing out as normal, and Royal Guard coming out either at the same time or slightly after the first attack's animation. Maintaining your Royal Guard stacks is key to playing Mihile as well. Try to always keep it at 5 throughout everything you do, because that's just constant free damage. The counterattack window reduces per extra stack of Royal Guard you have, going from about half a second at 0 to 1 stacks, down to about a quarter of a second time frame at 5 stacks. Remember though, Radiant Soul ignores this and sets the counterattack window to exactly half a second at all stacks. One more thing before moving on from Royal Guard. While it is an iframe and counters and protects against pretty much every single thing in the game that you can imagine, that's not entirely true. This is the very small list of exceptions that Royal Guard does not protect against. If it's not on this list of like 7 different things, Royal Guard protects you from them. That, or if some future update with new bosses outdates this list or something. The point is, don't be afraid to use it against everything, because chances are way more often times than not, you're going to be safe from them. Don't forget that Radiant Soul does damage around you while it's up and active. If you're in a boss's box room, right-click it on the buff bar to cancel it, so you don't grief your party with low drop rate and ruin the rewards for the week. Soul Link is always worth having on even without a party, because that's just a toggle for a little bit of extra free damage. On the contrary, you don't need Roiling Soul on at all while grinding. Much like in Rage, its intended use is as a bossing skill and not much else. If you're struggling with one-shotting mobs, it could have some use cases for dealing more damage to them with it on, but it's just better to have it off while grinding so you're hitting way more mobs per attack. Speaking of grinding, for grinding, place Install Shield and Urda Fountain, if you have it, down around one area of the map you don't want to visit too often. Since they both have the same duration and can be resummoned at the same time, that's kinda convenient. While they're over somewhere attacking enemies, you'll want to be on the other side they're not near, and simply attack with Radiant Cross and all your shorter cooldown skills like Sword of Light, Royal Guard, and Charging Light. Slightly higher effort compared to other classes, being you don't have 84 summons and a full map clear every respawn, but still pretty comfortable and simple. As always, make sure you pick a map layout you're personally comfortable with, and just do your best. For bossing, while it's tempting to spam Royal Guard as much as you can, have some restraint with it and use it when you need a new stack or when a boss is about to smack you down. You'll still want to be casting it often, but also while simultaneously being mindful of when the boss is about to do certain attacks. Mihile is a great class for learning how bosses are going to attack you, both for the when and where, because of their spammable Royal Guard iframe. You can get by just fine by reacting to when you think you're about to take damage, but you'll excel as a Mihile, knowing when to react at the perfect time they slap you with some of their attacks. So try and have some foresight for what they're about to do. As for party play, that whole last bit still applies here too, with all of Mihile's various party defenses. Soul Link for shields every time you successfully counterattack with Royal Guard, Shield of Light making multiple layers around you that you can use to protect your party for a set amount of time, and Light of Courage just giving your whole party a fat shield on their health bar for a little bit of time. And that's not even mentioning the extra party damage with Charging Light, or your own personal Link skill shield that both boosts your damage and reduces your damage taken. Mihile is one of the most helpful classes to have in a party, and easily one of the longest surviving classes in a boss fight. If you wanted to make it to the end of practically every boss you'll ever fight, Mihile's got you covered like 5 times over. Cooldown Hat is useful for Mihile in that it gives you extra defense by reducing the cooldown of Royal Guard to have a higher uptime. Typically on other classes you'd want a Cooldown Hat with as many cooldown lines as you can get, but in Mihile's case, it's actually better to have just a -2 second line, and then the rest of the lines being main stat, which in Mihile's case is strength. The Mihile Discord describes it as a break-even, because it's not technically a huge damage increase, and instead only reducing the cooldown of Royal Guard, Charging Light, Sword of Light, and Flanks Charge. So the damage lost from the line is made up for with those skills being reduced, plus more iframe uptime I guess. In short, get a Cooldown Hat, but don't get any more than -2 seconds, and then also get some strength if you can. Link skills, same as every other class. For grinding, the typical Evan, Mercedes, and Aran for extra XP, and Lara for normal enemy damage if needed. Fill in the rest of those links with whatever else you have, or think would fit best, usually anything increasing your damage. A layout like this should suffice. For bossing, yep, boss damage links, anything increasing damage, IED like Luminous's link, AB link because that's good on everyone now, Explorer Mage's link, Explorer Thief and Kandina's links for abnormal status damage increases, that kind of stuff. A layout like this is good. And as always, Resistance link if you wanted a little bit extra invincibility every time you revive in a boss fight. I'd say it's kind of unnecessary on Mihile because of your near constant iframe, but hey, that's even more time for iframing and building up a Royal Guard stack or two, so it's still nice. Inner ability is nothing worth writing home about either, in terms of different from other classes. For bossing, you'll want boss damage for the first line for, well, more boss damage, and abnormal status and buff duration for the second and third lines. Abnormal status damage is because you're going to be constantly blinding enemies, so that's just free extra damage right off the bat. And buff duration is mainly for AB's link, terms and conditions, being extended for a longer burst duration while it's active. Cooldown skip is fine too if you like living on the edge and being risky with your cooldown skills, potentially being able to be used multiple times in a row. Or also flat attack is a fine enough saddle as well. For a grinding preset, the typical drop, meso, and normal monster damage is totally a-okay too, as with all other classes. Mihile thankfully doesn't need the attack speed inner ability, because they reach the cap with just decent speed infusion and Monster Park Green Potion. Mihile's Trinodes are a bit of an oddity, as they need 5 out of their total 9 Trinodes they have to choose from. The 4 you ignore are your various attacks throughout your first through third job ranks you don't even use anymore, outside of like Vertical Radiant Driver, and even then you'll only be using that for mobility purposes, not damage. So, in terms of perfect Trinodes, the first one you'll want consists of Radiant Cross, Install Shield / Soul Majesty, and Royal Guard / Offensive Defense. Radiant Cross is your main mobbing and bossing skill, Install Shield is your summon skill that'll always be out and active, and Royal Guard is that skill. If you're not using Royal Guard on Mihile, you're doing something incredibly wrong. That's your lifeblood, of course you want the Trinode to boost its damage every time you counter. The second perfect Trinode is imperfect because there's only 2 left you want, Charging Light and Final Attack. Both of these skills are useful and both do great damage, but compared to everything on the first Trinode, they take a little bit less priority. You'll still want to get them when you can though. That third space left over, you can toss whatever you damn well still feel like tossing in there. If you wanted to max out one skill faster than the rest, then fill that gap with that skill. Otherwise, it's free game for whatever other skill you want to boost. Really, all the skills you want you're going to be using for everything you do anyways, so I personally don't think the order matters much, no matter if you're a Mihile main or a boss mule. The first Trinode is just better because that's your main bread and butter you do throughout everything, all the time. For burst / BA, pop them toggles, both Soul Link and Roiling Soul. Having max stacks of Royal Guard for the extra damage helps too. Buff up with your standard longer non-cooldown buffs, and other things like decent skills, etc. Then, pop your longer cooldown buffs like Weapon Aura, Queen of Tomorrow, Night's Watch, optionally Shield of Light if you wanted to use it for damage instead of party defense, Empress Cygnus's Blessing, and then Charging Light for the enemy debuff, and Blind. After that, place down Install Shield, Will Skill and Mitras, etc. if you have those, pop Phalanx Charge, Light of Courage if you wanted to use it offensively, Soul Majesty, and Radiant Soul. Now, pop AB Link, and just go to town with clicking Radiant Soul again for Light Force Ray, and after that, keep spamming Radiant Cross and all your other various short cooldown buffs whenever they come off cooldown, like Phalanx Charge, Sword of Light, Royal Guard, and Charging Light. Shorten down. Toggles, Royal Guard at 5 stacks, buffs, Weapon Aura, Queen of Tomorrow, Night's Watch, Shield of Light optional, Empress Cygnus's Blessing, Charging Light, Install Shield, Will Skill / Mitras if you have either of those, Phalanx Charge, AB Link, click Radiant Soul again for Light Force Ray, spam Radiant Cross, and all your other skills off cooldown. When you hit 6th job, this burst rotation doesn't even change much, beyond shoving in your origin right after you pop AB Link and Light Force Ray. Basically just pop everything you got, spam Radiant Driver, and cycle all your non-cooldown skills as often as you can, while maintaining max Royal Guard stacks. Not very hard or complicated at all. I knew going into this guide that Mihile had insane iframe potential, but learning how to properly utilize that Royal Guard and seeing just how much it gives every time you successfully do something with it made me appreciate this class more. That doesn't really change my opinion about them. I still think they're insanely cool and just blast all their enemies with shields of light. Thanks to the Mihile Discord for not only providing the Mihile guide right as you enter without having to do anything else, but also for answering my one tiny unimportant question about Magic Crash nearly instantaneously. I was shocked there was an answer as to what Obsidian Skin is, because I couldn't find that answer anywhere else, so that was genuinely really nice. And as always, thank you for watching my guide. If there's other classes you'd like me to cover in the near future, let me know down in the comments. If you just like MapleStory guides and listening to me navigate as many classes as I possibly can, as often as I can, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm fairly confident in knowing what class I want to do next, as it's one I keep seeing people ask for, and one that I know fairly well, but if enough people want something else, that could all change very quickly, and I'll just do a video on that instead. That's all.